Hello everybody, my name is Chris, and I'm the product manager for MSC Software's MaterialCenter. With me on the line is Leo Kilfoy, the general manager for MSC's Engineering Lifecycle Management business unit. And today, we will be showing you how you can deliver consistent and reliable materials data to your company with MaterialCenter 2017. First on the agenda, we will be discussing some of the major challenges today related to materials data in the current digital era. Then we will show you how MaterialCenter addresses these issues by building an innovative materials infrastructure. Afterwards, we will dive into a quick live product demonstration so you can see the system in action. And after we wrap up this presentation with some concluding remarks, we will then open the floor for questions. First, let's talk about some of the biggest material data challenges today. Materials are extremely costly, and in today's society, materials are also very, very abundant. Now, there are many types of materials ranging from metals, composites, plastics, and ceramics. And among these materials, they also have many different types of applications, including aerospace, automotive, consumer electronics, and even within the medical industry. And materials are the primary contributors to to innovation within these fields for making airplanes lighter, electronics faster, and chemical byproducts safer for the environment. And according to the U.S. Department of Commerce, materials have contributed over $280 billion to the U.S. GDP in just the last year alone. When we look at how much is being spent on materials, it is clear how important they are to our society as well as our economy. And within an engineering company, materials play a very critical role throughout the entire product lifecycle, from the initial R&D stages to design and simulation stages, and then to the final manufacturing and production stage. The success of a product depends on the successful utilization of high-quality materials property data. Now, however, this data comes in many different forms. And today, this data is generated by many different tools, such as test equipment or analysis programs, and the source of this data is also scattered and dispersed across many departments. And sometimes physical files are even filed away in cabinets, making it very difficult to access. And without a proper system to manage this information, productivity can be affected and data incoherence can be a very, very costly problem. Now, we conducted a survey with several major aerospace companies and discovered that each company lost up to half of their data every 12 to 18 months, which ended up costing each company millions of dollars each year. Now, these costs came from engineers spending more time on finding the right material data because it is scattered across the organization, and also in retesting of expensive material data because specific data or specific properties cannot be found. Now, MaterialCenter addresses these issues by centralizing all of the materials data within a company and establishing standard workflows to ensure that only certified material properties are used in design and in simulations. And many industry-leading companies are currently using MaterialCenter in order to save time and costs when it comes to collecting, evaluating, and managing complex materials data. Now, I will pass the mic over to Leo, who will talk more about how materials solves these challenges by building the infrastructure for new materials innovation.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. I want to start off by talking just about some of the basic capabilities from a process and data management system to manage your materials. We see it as three key pillars. The first one is the data management aspect, being able to keep, store, organize, search, and trace that materials, trying to keep precise pedigree all the way from your test data to the allowables that are used in the engineering design. The next pillar is workflow. Workflow allows you to manage the execution of your materials development programs, keep track of requests, and being able to trace all the information and approvals required within your material system. And finally, processes. We like to look at processes, the ability to automate and execute standard processes on materials. As an example, if I'm an aerospace supplier, calculation of an A basis or B basis allowables is something that is done often. We'd like to automate that process. Those are key process aspects that we like to be able to do from within Material Center. These three pillars are centralized in a single system that is web-based and provides direct access to your global materials community and end user community. So the next thing I'm going to do is look at the ecosystem of Material Center. So how does Material Center work? What are all the parts of Material Center? So the first thing is getting materials data into the system. The data we bring in most commonly is test data, but Material Center also has the ability to bring in, to capture and calculate materials data using products such as Digimat, so you can have the virtual data inside the system as well. In addition to the test data, we also like to keep track of any sort of process data associated with that test data, which provides some additional leverage in terms of understanding the variability in your properties. Once the test data is inside the system, we go through the normal materials engineering process. And that process is to typically go through reduce and fit multiple tests to calculate properties that can be used in engineering. Once that is done, we go through a process of, typically most customers go through a process of approval and release. What we've done is included that approval and release process directly inside Material Center, providing the added benefit that it's fully traceable, approvals are fully traceable within the system. That's for the test data that you provide. In addition, we also have third-party data such as MMPDS, MIL17, JAM databases, a variety of other databases that are available within Material Center for use. Many of these material data are used for commercially designing materials. We also have data that is used for cross-reference, comparison purposes, etc. So this data is made available along with your data. You can use to compare. You can also provide that data out to the end users if you choose to use for design and analysis. Now that the data is inside the system, it becomes about using the data. So the downstream users having access to the data. So we provide multiple ways of accessing the data. So one way of doing it is providing access directly from a CAD or a CAE tool, such as Creo or Patran or ANSA, Abacus, etc. So we provide access directly from within the system. In addition, we also provide a Excel interface, which both is useful for potentially end users as well as the materials engineer. A lot of test data comes in the format of Excel, so we have an add-in directly inside the Excel spreadsheet that provides the ability to directly take your test data and bring it inside the system. And then finally, if data changes or updates are made, or being able to publish that subsets of that materials data to a PDM system, we provide a way to publish and notify users and publish out data to PDM and PLM systems. This provides the benefit that if I'm using material and an update has been made to the material, I am aware of those changes. So Chris, I'm going to turn it back to you so we can actually do a demonstration of this.
Thank you, Leo. So now we will show you through a quick demo how Material Center can provide engineers with complete traceability over a company's material property data. So for this demo, I will be taking on the role of a CAE engineer who wants to use a company-approved material for his analysis. So what he's going to do, he's going to log in through an integrated tool with Material Center through a third-party CAE application and retrieve a material model for use in his engineering analysis. And once he uses this analysis, he will take this property and trace it back to its original source back in Material Center. And throughout this demo, you'll be able to see how data can be collected coming from a variety of different forms. And through Material Center's audit trail, you have complete traceability from end to end of how your material property data is being used in the engineering process. So with that, I will start off this demo by opening up a third-party CAE application. and accessing MaterialCenter through an integrated tool called the MaterialCenter Explorer. And as the CAE engineer, I want to use a company-approved 7075 aluminum alloy in my analysis of a landing gear bracket. So using the MaterialCenter Explorer, I can open up an interface to view the material models that are available in MaterialCenter. And using this menu, I have the ability to find and select the 7075 aluminum alloy for use in my landing gear analysis. So what I have selected is the material model that displays as a file that is native to the format of the solver that I'm using. And after I have selected this CAE model, I can find out more about where this model came from by right-clicking the model and clicking this Display in Browser button. So what this will do is take me to the web user interface of MaterialCenter, where I can find out where the properties of this model came from. So in the web UI, within the record of this material model, I can see that it consists of a stress strain curve, along with some other mechanical property information. And if I go to the right left corner and select the pedigree view, I am redirected to a diagram that shows the entire history of the CAE model. So through this view, I can see that the CAE model came from a specific material record. And if I drill even further back on the diagram, I can see that this material was derived from 5 different tests. And each of these tests include their own stress strain curve data, as well as any additional test metadata that's associated to this test, such as the length of the specimen, the width of the specimen, as well as the thickness. If I want, I can click on the curve to view more information about it. And if I go back up in the pedigree, I can go even further back to see the test standard that has been applied to this test. And in this case, this is a simple tensile test that is based on ASTM E8. And if I click on the file, I have access to the original test standard document. And then lastly, I can go one step further back to see the specimen definition that was used for this test. Over here, I can see the image. And again, I can see another document that is associated to the definition of how of the specimen that was used for this specific test. So in short, from specimen specification to testing to the reduction of that test to design data, and then finally the conversion of the material properties into a material model that can be picked up by simulation applications, MaterialCenter manages to complete end-to-end processes for your material properties to ensure that your data is complete, easy access, and only coming from certified sources. So now I'll quickly transition back into the presentation. So in summary, in just a quick demo, we showed you how, as the CAE engineer, you can trace back to the origin of your data, from the design properties to the individual tests, and then even back to the detailed test specifications. And as we discussed in the beginning of the presentation, materials data plays a very critical role throughout the entire product lifecycle. And with MaterialCenter, every single step along the way can be captured to ensure that your data is consistent, reliable, and coming from absolute approved sources. So now I will pass it back over to Leo to talk about some closing remarks with MaterialCenter.
Thank you, Chris. So one of the things I wanted to give just a high-level discussion on is what differentiates MaterialCenter. MaterialCenter is a material lifecycle management system that manages your processes and your data across the material lifecycle, all the way from test, from the manufacturing parameters go into test, as well as your physical and virtual test, to CAD and CAE use. Capabilities within the system include data and process management, the ability to keep full, precise traceability and pedigree information. We have a built-in workflow and approval system. We have very strong Excel integration. We have the ability to automate material processes. We have a flexible licensing system. So if you're a customer that is on MSC1, you can have access to MaterialCenter directly through MSC1. Finally, we have security and access control. As I mentioned, we manage all the way across the material lifecycle, all the way, and that includes beyond just the engineering. Once the components, the products and parts are in service, we have aspects that relate to sustainability and managing data downstream. And finally, deep CAE, solver, and CAD integrations. That kind of summarizes the key aspects of MaterialCenter.